Um, so this is my speech on Papago Park. I know most of you guys are probably not familiar with this park, even though it's like 12 minutes away from campus, as we are all ASU students, most of us. Um, anyway, this park, you know, it holds a lot of like historical significance in Arizona for a lot of infamous reasons. It lives in infamy, and I'm here to inform you guys a little about that. So, like a little background on the park is that it was, native grounds, much like most of Arizona is. They granted it the national, like the protective title of native grounds in 1914. But ended up revoking that in 1930 because of the inhabitual nature of Papago Park. So like the natives could not develop very well on said land. So they're like, we'll give it back to Maricopa County. Maricopa County actually then ended up granting the land to Arizonians who, needed a place to live. And they said, we can give you this land, but you're going to have to develop it for us. And so it's kind of like a win-win situation for Maricopa and incoming Arizona. Anywho, so they kind of had like this grand plan for Papago Park, where there'd be like canals, there'd be resorts. It'd be like this kind of like one of the biggest tourist sites for Arizona. As you can see now, that really didn't happen because nobody really knows of this place. But yeah, that was what they had planned for Papago Park. Anywho, so moving on from just the background of that, it's not really a lot to talk about background-wise of Papago Park. But what makes it such an interesting spot is because of what happened in the 1930s, around the time where the Second World War started. Arizona and like just most of the United States was looking for places to place their prisoners of war, and Papago Park was actually selected as one of these spots, one of these areas where they could hold these German prisoners, these German soldiers that they captured. So yeah, they ended up putting around 2,000 German soldiers in Papago Park, and things were actually moving quite smoothly for a minute. You know what I mean? Like they was just prisoners in a park in like a closed gated community. It was nothing too bad until unfortunately, and I mean fortunately for the German soldiers, they planned an escape. It was actually one of those things. It was like one of those movies where the guys were completely unsuspecting of them because the German soldiers they planted flower beds, they built a volleyball court, and they looked content. But on the side, they were like digging holes with spoons during the rain because the terrain was too rough when it was dry. Yeah, they're using spoons to dig tunnels and stuff like that. So 25 German soldiers, prisoners of war, ended up escaping into the wild of Arizona, I guess you could call it, the desert of Arizona. And they managed to escape for a full month. It is actually the biggest manhunt in Arizona's history. But yeah, after the month passed, they actually didn't even get captured. They returned because of the extreme nature of Arizona's climate, and which is I find very interesting because I guess they could have been free men, but without initial resources, trying to survive somewhere in Arizona is quite impossible. Rather than in the movies, like jungles, they have the tools for you to survive. You just need to know which ones to pick from. In Arizona, it's desert. It's just dirt and bushes and stuff like that, and cacti, which I guess are useful, but not in this sense. Especially for people who are not native to desert areas, this was kind of a shock to them. So they actually returned, and the 8 who planned the escape were executed. Going into the last thing about Papago Park. Papago Park is interesting for a couple of reasons, not only that whole prisoner of war story. It houses a lot of unique rock structures and animals. And recently a study was done to see how urbanization affected those animals and just the development of Arizona. Arizona just in general, but they use Papago Park as their research center because it's like kind of like a secluded area. Not a lot of people visit there. So they actually found that birds and reptilians were not really affected as much as the mammals of Arizona. So over the course of a couple decades, we're going to see a huge decrease in mammal population, especially in Arizona, just due to either global warming, urbanization, or just economic factors that we're not aware of. Yeah, to reiterate, Papago Park is not very interesting on the surface layer, but when you look deep down into its history, you can find, like, I guess,